Hi everybody, I'm Karol Helms, USPDF Miss Sexy 2010 and USPDF 2009 East Coast Champion. I'm here today to answer some of your questions. So let's go ahead and get started and see what we have in the inbox. Be sure to write in the chat if you have any additional questions that I don't answer here. The first question is with Nina. Nina asks, how much time do you spend watching pole dance videos on YouTube, competitions, or other dancers' training clips, etc.? I probably don't spend as much time as I would like to watching other people's videos on YouTube. I used to spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos and training clips, but I still try to get on, especially after competitions, whether it's a European competition or a US competition. And whenever I know that these things are going on after they've gone on a few days later, I always like to go on and check out and see who has placed and watch their routines. I don't spend as much time as I would like, mostly because I travel a lot and I'm teaching. But yes, I'd say I spend a pretty good amount of time still on YouTube. Nowadays, a lot of people post the little 15 seconds on Instagram. Those are very addictive for the ADD culture that we are. Yeah. Let's see what Joey has to say. Joey says, greetings from Mexico. I broke my leg. I'm worried that I can't pole dance anymore, after recovering, of course. Do you have any experience or know someone who has had the same issue? Joey, I have not broken any bones. I have broken a toe, hyperextended a thumb, but personally I haven't had any major breaks in bones. I do, however, know of a couple people who have had broken bones in pole dance. One of those would be Miss Amanda Rose, who is a U.S. pole dancer, and she recently, I think back in May or April, yes, I believe in April or May, while training for the world competition, had a pretty bad fall and broke both of her legs. She was in double leg cast and has since then recovered and not only gotten back on the pole, but gotten back into the competition scene. So yes, it is a possibility. It's not the end of the world. Just take your time, recover, do your rehab as your doctor instructs, and take it nice and slow when you go back to getting on the pole. Miss Olga. Olga asks, what kind of pole dance events should be organized more often? To answer the question, I believe I really enjoy watching the showcases the most. I feel like the showcases are a lot of fun for people because it's not the same pressures as the competition. I really enjoy watching the pieces that people come up with no pressure of how many tricks or how many advanced tricks there are in a routine. But I also like to see competitions, and I'm really glad to see that over the past 5 or 6 years that I've been involved with the pole industry, that there have been so many more events coming up, and so many more keep evolving and coming up each year. Helly asks, is the pole dancing only sport you practice, or do you have other exercise on your weekly basis? what position has been the hardest to practice or has taken you the longest time to get it right? So there's two parts to this question. The first part, pole dance is not the only sport that I practice. When I was younger, I was a big tomboy, meaning I did a lot of sports that boys liked and not so many girls are into. I ran track when I was in junior high and high school, as well as raced motocross from the age of 9 until 14. As far as any other exercises that I practice, I do try to do weight training when I am at home. And in my weight training, I try to train the muscle groups that we do not utilize as much on the pole, meaning training the back of my body mostly. And then I also like to complement my pole training with aerial training, whether it's aerial yoga or aerial silks, which I feel like hurts a lot. I really enjoy aerial hoop because I feel like it's very evening, meaning it's not as one-sided dominant as pole. And I've recently gotten into training aerial pole, which is mounted from the top and is free swinging. The second part of your question, what position has been the hardest to practice or has taken me the longest time to get right? For me, the handspring, the basic handspring, was the hardest position for me to practice, mainly because when I was practicing many years ago, there were not any instructional videos or studios that I could go to learn this move. So I pretty much just watched a video of Fania the first time I saw the handspring. And once I saw it, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to do that. This woman must be superhuman. And it took me from the time I very first saw the handspring until the first time I actually got inverted in the handspring was about 2 years of consistent practice. And there was nobody telling me what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong. So it was a lot of trial and error for me. One day I just got mad enough and gave a little bit of an extra hard kick and got up just for a second before I came down. But it was just that second that I needed to realize that I could accomplish the move. And from that moment, the progress became a lot better, meaning that every time that I tried it, I would get a little bit longer hang time before I would come down to the floor. Another one that took me a long time to get right was the flag inversion. Again, going back to when I was practicing this move, nobody taught me how to do it. I would see a couple videos of people doing this move, and I would never quite understand exactly how it was being performed. So from the time that I started practicing the flag inversion until the time that it clicked and I got it was probably about 3 years. Again, it was just one day. I was trying with my bottom arm as straight as it could be, and then I slid it up a little bit and had an extra push, and everything kind of clicked into place. So just because something is giving you problems in the here and now doesn't mean that you won't get it eventually. And today that there is so many great tutorials and great instructors and great pole stars that travel and teach, that there's lots of opportunity to learn many different techniques to achieve the same move. Let's go into the next question. Ivana asks, as one of the pioneers of pole dance, it was harder for you to advance smoothly as people do today, since pole dance was only at its beginnings. And I guess that you were self-taught a lot. How do you keep your motivation up when you are working on your own? When you are experienced living far away from a studio, relying on YouTube, etc.? This is a very good question. As one of the pioneers of pole dance, I was very kind of isolated when I was first learning pole. 7, 8 years ago, when I really seriously started training pole dancing, there were not very many pole studios in the US, much less in my immediate area. So I utilized YouTube a lot, and it was very difficult for me sometimes to watch a video and then look at the hand placement, the leg placement, and figure out exactly what was going on. So of course it took me a little longer for things to click, mostly because I didn't have knowledgeable instructors telling me exactly the placement of the hands or the momentum that was needed or the motion that should happen or the muscles that should be engaging. So it was very hard for me to advance smoothly. My basic climb was very ugly for a long time. My inversion was kind of hard for a long time. I would always bend my legs rather than use the muscles to invert with legs straight. And it also took me a long time to make my feet talk to my head. My left foot especially always had a mind of its own. I would invert and my right foot would be nice and straight and my left foot would be on somebody else's body. So it took me a long time to just kind of pay attention to these things and improve on these things. But as I improved on my own, I kind of figured out things that maybe would help other people who are learning the same movements. The second part of the question, how do I keep my motivation up when I'm working on my own? That is really hard. It is always nicer to have a friend, even if it's just a friend on the computer through Skype, to kind of bounce ideas off of and try things with. Sometimes you just have to tell yourself, you just have to go in there and do it. And whether you're by yourself or not, usually once I'm in there and I'm warming up and I do a few things on the pole, then I find that I'm very motivated after that point. It's finding the motivation to get off my butt and go in the pole room and warm up and practice that I find is the hardest. One of the things that keeps me motivated is looking online. Sometimes when I'm feeling stagnant in the things that I'm doing, I will look on Instagram or Facebook to kind of find some inspiration on some new moves to try, or some variations on moves to try. And then sometimes it's nice to just free dance and let your body kind of move through movements on its own, and you'll come up with new things that way as well. Living far away from the studio is hard, so of course I bought an X pole for my home and was teaching myself in my bedroom, as many of you do. And I found it very hard to motivate myself to come into the bedroom and play on the pole. So a lot of times that motivation I find through music. You hear a song and it just makes you kind of want to move and try things. Yeah, so finding that motivation, it always has to come from within. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, is motivate yourself to go and train by yourself. Let's move on to the next question. Hiki asks, who would be your favorite doubles partner? This is a difficult question for me because I don't know that that I would be a very good doubles partner for this person. But if I had a choice in my fantasy doubles pole partner world, it would probably be Nadia Sharif. And mainly because we are similar sizes in height, similar body builds, similar flexibility, and she's just amazing. She's very similar styles. Anina asks, hello, Karol. How did you end up doing pole, and how long have you been doing it? That's a good question. Unlike many others, I'm not ashamed to say that I actually found pole in the strip clubs. I was a dancer in the clubs for a very long time, and when I started, there was one girl there who did a couple things on the pole. And I remember my very first week being there and just watching her on stage and feeling like, wow, that's the most amazing thing ever. I want to learn this and I want to learn that. And sometimes strippers aren't as helpful towards each other because it is a very competitive environment. So I would watch and analyze and try to break things down on my head as much as I could. And I would come in and very early before customers would come to the club, and I would practice on the stage. Practice inverting, practice doing fireman spins, practicing shoulder mounts before I knew they were called shoulder mounts. So I started pole and found pole through the strip clubs. And how long have I been doing pole? Since 2002, and more seriously since 2005. In 2005, the first few years, I had a handful of moves that I would do, and they were the things that felt good for me, and those moves included the rock star spin, which was kind of an evolution from that same girl's fireman spin. I would just lift my leg and lean back away from the pole with lots of momentum. Another move that I liked to do a lot was the shoulder mount, and before I knew it was called a shoulder mount, or maybe before it was even called a shoulder mount, I would use what we now call today a claw grip, where your thumb and forefinger are on one side of the pole and your other three fingers are on the other, so that you're gripping like this. And this is how I would shoulder mount for a very long time. It was a very long time before I ever saw a shoulder mount performed with a cup grip, and I think the very first time I saw the princess grip was in the Felix Kane 2006 video, when she won her very first Miss Pole Dance Australia. Another move that I did a lot was the chopper, which I didn't know it was called a chopper. It was just the thing where I flipped upside down. And the other move that I would do a lot was the butterfly, which today we'd probably call the baby butterfly, where both of your legs are bent and you're very close to the pole. Not extended, but the baby version. So for the first 3 years of my pole dancing in the clubs, I had these few moves that I would do over and over, and that was kind of all that I felt confident in doing, and that was all that I really had seen at that point. And then in 2005, I was searching on the internet, and I came across Fania Monday, which now her last name is Dietrich. I found her Pole Work 101 video DVD, and I purchased it on Amazon, and I watched it, and that was the very first time I saw the handspring. It was the first time that I'd seen what she calls the sun wheel spin, and I think that we call mostly the attitude spin. And I remember watching the handspring then and just feeling like I would never ever get to that level. As far as how long I've been doing it, I would say I really started to venture out of those little comfort moves that I had in 2005. 2005 was the same year that YouTube was created, and for the first year, maybe 2006, I was on YouTube late at night one night and just decided to search pole dancing or pole dancer or stripper pole or something, and I remember pulling up maybe 2 videos, one of which who was Alina Downs, who is in Canada, and the other is Tara Karina, who is, I think, in the UK. And really at that time, they were the only ones on YouTube with pole dance videos. I saw Alina Downs' video, and it was the very first time that I had seen a spinning pole. I didn't know that poles spin around. So of course, after seeing Alina Downs on the spinning pole, I wanted a spinning pole, and so I bought my very first X pole before X Pole USA was created. So I bought my X pole from the UK, paid the shipping to ship from the UK to the US, and then 6 months later they have X Pole USA. Tara Karina was a very elegant dancer with lots of spins and some climbs and different inverted moves that I had never seen. It was the very first time I'd seen the Superman. I remember learning the Superman was very painful for me. It was very difficult. So I would say unofficially I've been pole dancing for 12 years, and officially I've been pole dancing for 8 years. Let's move on to the next question. Sanya asks, "Hi Karol, who is your pole idol?" That is a hard question because I have so many pole idols, and they always seem to change throughout the years. Obviously, my very first pole idol was Fania, mainly because she was the very first person that I'd seen do pole at the level that I had never seen before. And then right behind Fania would probably be Alina Downs and Tara Karina. And then from there, pole dancing started to become a very underground kind of movement that mainly happened on YouTube. And besides Alina Downs and Tara Karina, probably the next pole idol that I had was Felix Kane, and we all remember the video. Felix Kane with her short red hair and dancing her very first Miss Pole Dance Australia competition. And then following Felix Kane was Janine Butterfly in the US. And following Janine Butterfly has been so many of my YouTube friends that have now become real life friends through the years. One of those is Alethea Austin. Another is Amber Richards. I know I'm going to leave a lot of people out here. I have so many pole idols, and I feel like I find something special in so many different pole idols that it's hard for me to name just one. Let's go to the chat and see if anybody is asking any questions. Scroll down. Here we go. Sonia from the Czech Republic asks, how many times per week are you working on your flexibility? Not enough. When I look at some of the pole dancers today who have ballet or gymnastics or circus or contortion backgrounds, I feel like I don't work on my flexibility enough. But ideally, I work on my flexibility 3 times a week. Each day I do a lot of light stretching, but more deep stretching at least 3 times a week with a day break or a couple of days break in between each.
Which Easter? Toy Laster or Master J?
Not sure what's going on over there. Let's move on to Agata. I believe that's how you say your name. I'm sorry if I butchered it. I find your routines impossibly gripping. It's like watching theater play. How do you compose them? What are your tips to create a successful routine? Well, first off, thank you, Agata. That means a lot to me. I mainly compose my routines through
I don't know what you mean by
listening to the music.
Raging, thank you. Which Easter? Toy Laster or Master J?
We have some random phone talking to us right now. So I mainly compose my routines by listening to the music first, many times. And I like to listen to the music and hear the different nuances or levels, changes, or breaks. And I first visualize myself dancing to the song. After visualizing a lot, I kind of come up with things in my head that seem right to fit with the music. Sometimes I will write those things down with like where they fit or where I feel like they fit with the music. But you don't know where they fit with the music until you perform them with the music. So the next step is to actually perform them with the music. I try to pay a lot of attention to the musicality of accenting certain parts of the music or certain parts of the lyrics or a certain beat. I love to do drops. That's one of my favorite things to do. So how I compose a routine is I will start with a sheet of paper and I will write either the music intro of how many counts of 8, or sometimes I don't even worry about counts. I just kind of write from 0 seconds to 35 seconds before the first verse starts. And I'll kind of map out the song itself. Then the next step for me is to write down what I visualize myself doing with each of those parts of the music. The third step for me is to actually perform those visualizations within the parts of the music that I see myself doing them and see if they actually fit. And this is the part where you really find the kind of how the music tells you to move. So just because in my head I see myself doing 5 things within a certain amount of time doesn't always mean that my body wants to do those 5 things or that it feels correctly. So after performing my visualization with the part of the music that I feel like it should fit to, I will write down what actually works. And so from there, I will continue to kind of add on each of the pieces. Sometimes for me, I like to start with a good beginning, and after I feel like I've created a good starting point, it's easier to grow from there. Sometimes I come up with different pieces and then try to fuse them together. As far as coming up with a full routine, it's always the music that dictates the moves for me. Sometimes I'll feel like the music is telling me to hold a certain move a little bit longer, or a transition needs to be quicker. I like to accentuate beats of the music or drops in the music with drops on the pole or certain motions on the pole. So coming up with your routine, start with your skeleton and then add in the meat, and then the final step is to put the skin on. And a lot of that has to do with repetition and giving yourself time to kind of let the choreography kind of create itself around what you visualize yourself doing. Sometimes I visualize myself doing amazing things and it doesn't always work. So putting those pieces together can sometimes be tricky. For me, I'm a very visual person, so I like to have it kind of mapped out on a piece of paper. It makes it very easy for me. I hope that helps. The next question is from Lena. How did you find your unique dance style? Lena, I found my unique dance style probably in the strip clubs. It's very on the go. So meaning that
Siri here. How may I help you?
meaning that when you're dancing on stage in front of people and you don't know what music the DJ is going to play for you, you just kind of have to just move and let your body come up with things on its own. One of the most difficult things for me was being sexy, because I was not a very girly girl growing up. I was very tomboy and always in the dirt with the boys, riding dirt bikes, playing with worms. So for me to make the transition from being a very tomboy to being very sexy, it took a lot of time. And it took a lot of time of me freestyling and having to come up with things very quickly on stage in front of a live audience. I feel like the more time you spend freestyling and just moving and seeing what feels good for your own body, the more that you'll find your unique dance style. It's always okay to try to emulate other artists, but always trying to take that, what you like about that movement that they're doing and make it work for your own body. Meaning, you know, your flow may not be the same, even though you try to emulate. It's always going to come out differently because of the way that your body is different than mine or different than hers, or vice versa. So just give yourself some time, lots of dance practice, film yourself, look at the videos and see what you like and see what maybe doesn't work, and just grow from there. next question. Hi, Karol. I wanted to tell you how much I admire you. You are my first pole crush, and meeting you in Bristol this year was like meeting Mick Jagger or so. Anyways, oh, the question continues. Let me click.
It's up on.
Up. I feel like there's a huge pressure in the pole world to do crazy flips and bending tricks. Of course they are impressive, but not everybody will ever be able to learn them. So my question to you is, do you feel any pressure? If so, how do you cope with it? Very good question. You didn't attach your name to this, but thank you, first of all. Thank you for coming to my workshops in Bristol. I remember those workshops at 360, and they were a lot of fun. It was a good group of ladies. And to be compared to Mick Jagger is just amazing. As far as pressure, yes, I feel pressure, especially being an older pole generation where coming from a time in pole dance where not a lot of these crazy fongies and flips off the pole and releases and catches and things didn't exist. I do feel pressure sometimes to try and keep up with those things. I'm not always able to do some of the crazy flips and crazy tricks that are going on today. But that doesn't mean that I don't still appreciate the way that they look or try to break them down for people who want to ask me to learn them. And bendy tricks. It's very hard to keep up with the pole industry. It seems in just the 5 or 6 years that I've been competing and traveling and teaching, that pole has come from this little kind of tame thing to this crazy acrobatic insane thing. So yes, there's always a pressure there, but for me, there's so many great things and great tricks in pole that don't involve flips that could possibly break your neck or your face, or flexibility that's maybe not attainable for your body. Everybody has their limitations, and just because there are these 5 crazy tricks that everybody is doing this month doesn't mean that there aren't these 100 tricks that sometimes people forget about and forget how amazing they are and how great they can be when they're done well. So yeah, I guess I cope with the pressure by just reminding myself that everybody's bodies are different. Everybody has their own comfort zone, and everybody has their abilities. Everybody has their qualities that are really great, things that they're really good at, and things that they struggle with. For me, one of those things are the crazy flippy pole moves, mainly because I really enjoy dancing in heels, that I'm a lot of times scared of the dismounts out of some of these crazy flippy pole moves in heels. And another with the bendy tricks. Of course, I feel like for me, there's always going to be those unattainable bendy tricks that maybe my body will never do. And that's okay. And you should be okay with that yourself too. Just remind yourself of all the things that you can do and improve on those things. And remind yourself of where you started in pole and where you are today. And keep reminding yourself of the progress that you've made of your own pole journey. And try not to compare yourself to the other people, the pole stars who are doing all of these crazy, unattainable or seemingly unattainable things that you think that you may not ever be able to do. Just because you can't do them at this time doesn't mean that you may not be able to ever do them. But yes, the pressure is always there. And I think that's just human nature to always see other people and compare ourselves to those people. But just keep reminding yourself that everybody's bodies are different, and do things that feel good for your body, and try not to push yourself past your comfort zone and your skill level. Let's look at some more questions. Laura asks, as one of the pioneers of pole dance, how do you feel about pole dance making its way into the Olympics? This is a very controversial question for a lot of pole dancers. You have this kind of great divide when it comes to pole in the Olympics. Some people really want to see pole in the Olympics because they feel like it's going to make the rest of the world appreciate us and take us seriously. Where, for me, I feel like if pole was in the Olympics, it's going to lose some of its taboo factor or some of its appeal. I feel like it's going to become very technical and watered down. And not to mention that you probably, as a pole dancer, will never be in the Olympics unless you start when you are 5 years old. But I don't feel like it's a completely bad thing. So for me, I'm very indifferent on the subject. I feel like, yeah, it would be really cool to see pole in the Olympics and see it on that big stage. But I also feel like that we don't have to be in the Olympics to be legitimized as a sport or an art. There are plenty of art forms and dance styles that aren't in the Olympics that are very legitimized in the public eye. Aerial silks, aerial hoop, Chinese pole. There's tons of different art forms that have never made it to the Olympics, but have gained mainstream popularity. And for me, I feel like pole is one of those things. When I first started pole dancing and traveling and teaching pole, I would meet people on the airplane or in the store or wherever, and conversation, they would ask, oh, what do you do? Or why are you here? And I would say, oh, I'm here teaching pole dancing. And at a time back then, there was always this response of like, oh, like strippers. No, not like strippers, like gymnasts almost. But for me, I feel like that mindset of the public has changed a lot with pole being in music videos, with pole being on all of these talent TV shows like America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent. Pole being in Cirque du Soleil as an act. So I feel like it's a very torn question for me as far as pole in the Olympics. It would be really cool to see it. But again, I feel like it would be very technical and rigid, and if you like anything having to do with any sort of ounce of sexy in pole, you will not see it in the Olympics. Let's move on to the next question. Jessica asks, who is my favorite male pole dancer and why? Wow. Lots of favorite male pole dancers, but maybe my very favorite is Josiah Badass Grant. And mainly just because he's my very first male pole dancer that I ever discovered. For me, it was exciting to see a man being sexy on the pole, and to see the strength that men have versus the strength that we have to work for as women. But nowadays, Definitely, Evenji is definitely one of my favorites to watch. Gosh, there's so many good male pole dancers out there. I really enjoy watching Oliver Pavic, I believe, from New York. There's many more that I'm discovering every day that I really admire. But probably my all-time favorite is Josiah. And to see his progress over the years has been really cool. To see how he's come from a very, like me, a stripper background, and has worked hard and trained hard to gain flexibility and evolve in his style of movement and not just stay stuck in one way of moving has been really inspiring to me. Next question is from Kate. Good to hear that you are not ashamed of the strip club background of pole dance. How do you feel about kids as young as 9 doing pole dance and taking part in pole dance competitions? Personally, I love the fact that that pole dance has finally come to a place that, for not everybody, but most of us, that it is okay to watch a child on the pole dance. When I watch children pole dancing, it's very separate than what I've seen in the strip club or even dance myself. For me, I really find it inspiring that the children are so fearless and they're so just strong at such a young age. I really enjoy seeing a lot of the competitions opening up junior divisions or don't know the other words that they're using for some of these divisions, apprentice divisions. I know there's always going to be that stigma attached to pole. No matter how hard we work at separating pole from the strip clubs, you're always going to have a group of people who associate pole with strippers. And for those people not able to differentiate the thing that children are doing on the pole versus what somebody like me with heels and tiny booty shorts and body rolls and hip booty shakes, it's really sad because I feel like pole is such an empowering thing for women, period, that it can be just as empowering for children to learn to control their bodies, feel their bodies, be strong, be flexible, and be confident. I feel like a lot of children who are doing pole are usually coming from mothers who have done pole or are into pole, which is okay. I also have quite a few children who are students. My youngest one is 9, and I have a 13-year-old that I've coached. And again, I feel like it really just all depends on how they are being exposed to the pole. Children at 9, they don't know what strippers do on the pole unless you've shown them videos or they've snuck into a strip club with their parents. They don't know these things, so they don't associate the pole with strippers or that stigma of pole dancing. They just know that it's fun and that they get to flip upside down and do all these crazy things, and it's just playtime for them. So I encourage children on the pole. I feel like as long as the instruction is safe and they're learning correct technique and not hurting their bodies, more power to them. More kids on the pole is what I say. Let's move on to the next question. Anita? I'm probably saying that wrong, and I apologize. Are you planning to take part in any competitions? Sadly, no. I feel like my competition days are long behind me. I going back to one of the other questions that somebody submitted, saying that there's lots of crazy flips and uber flexible moves that are going on nowadays. I feel like because I travel and I teach so much that I don't have the time to dedicate to training new moves and bettering myself, or bettering my flexibility or my strength. That I feel like I am in a different generation of pole dancers. I am the grandma of pole, meaning I kind of have been there, done that, made a name for myself. I really enjoy helping this next generation of competitors become amazing stage competitors. That's probably one of my favorite things to do, is to help these younger pole competitors formulate routines and put things together and build their stage presence. So I don't know that I will take part in any more pole competitions. Maybe when I am a few more years older, I will enter some master divisions, some for the older ladies. Maybe I will revisit it then. Next question is from Tony. What music do you pole dance to? All kinds of music. I like a lot of classic rock. I love to pole dance to blues. Sexy, sultry blues is probably my favorite. The Black Keys, you can never go wrong with some Black Keys. I really love to dance to kind of just not anything too crazy fast that I have to work hard to keep up with. But yeah, my musical tastes are all over the place. So sometimes I like to dance to something that I can shake my butt to, and sometimes I like to dance to something that I can just kind of move and flow with. And if you want some specific artists, you can email me and ask me. The next question is, what top are you wearing? Good question. Right now I have on the princess top, my pole fit. It's actually in my special color combination of carbon and black. And the pants are also pole fit, the helix capris with the mesh and the fishnet details. If you're interested in those, you can check those out at badkitty.com. Let's do the next question. From Sonia. Oh, she's thanking me for the answer, and she has a second question. How does your training week look like? Because I'm still trying to figure out what works best for me, or what will be the best for me. That's a hard question because my weeks are always different. Some weeks I'm at home all week. Some weeks I'm traveling on planes and trains and automobiles. So it's really hard to stay consistent with me and my training now. But before I started traveling very consistently, I would practice pole 4 times at least a week for 2 to 3 hours a day, sometimes more, sometimes less. I would say try to dedicate at least 3 days a week to deep stretching, whether that's after a pole session or just on its own completely is completely up to you. But listen to your body and just let it tell you what feels good for yourself. Anonymous Pole Tricker from Anonymous Society of Anonymous Pole Trickers asks, wow, that's a mouthful. Actually, I wanted to ask, what does she think about male performers which compete male category with female style? And what is the name of male and female pole dancers with whom she would like to train together? So, a two-part question. First part, as far as watching male pole dancers compete with a female style, which I'm assuming meaning lots of hip rolls and a little bit more sexy, strippery, I really feel like there's a place for everybody. Just because a man is a man doesn't mean that he can't move his booty around. Everybody, of course, has their own movements that they like to do. So just because somebody is a little bit more feminine in their movements versus somebody who's very masculine in their movements, I enjoy watching both. And the second part of your question, what is the name of a male and female pole dancers with whom I would like to train together? Oh, hard questions because there's so many out there that I really love. Let's say with female pole dancers first. With female pole dancers who I would like to train together, I really enjoy training together with Phoenix Khazri. Another is Natasha Wang. Another female would probably be Alethea Austin because she's my best friend. As far as male pole dancers with whom I would like to train together, I've trained with, well, not formally and consistently, but I've pole jammed with Timber Brown, who was a lot of fun to pole jam with and train with. He was very helpful. Another, Brandon Acro Rosario, is another fun male pole dancer to dance with. I love Stephen Retchless. He is always so much fun. Probably because his style is so much different than mine that I would really enjoy learning some more dancey kind of style than sexy stripper style. So that, yeah, just to name a few, Timber Brown, Stephen Retchless, and Brandon Acro. Okay, let's see. Do we have any more questions? Yeah. Last question. Can you tell us something about the piece you are going to perform tomorrow at Swiss Pole Show? Oh, it's going to be a surprise. No. So the piece I'm performing at Swiss Pole Show tomorrow is very fun. Because I'm dancing alongside Natasha Wang, Nadia Sharif, Anastasia Sokolova, Phoenix Khazri, so many beautiful, bendy, tricky dancers. I wanted my piece to be very different from what they're going to present on stage. So you're just going to have to watch the live stream on Poleranking to find out. But I'm going to have an extra special guest on stage with me tomorrow. So if you want to see who that extra special guest is, go to Poleranking, go to their Facebook page and find the live stream and come and watch the Swiss Pole Show tomorrow. Yay! Bye! Thank you guys for all your questions and lots of pole love.